Saludos a todos y buenos días. Espero que se encuentren bien. Gracias a todos aquí los presentes y gracias a todos los que se dieron cita en el primer día del International Women Cannabis Congress y por su apoyo ante los cambios debido al fenómeno atmosférico. Esperemos que todos estén bien, sanos y salvos junto con sus familias durante esta situación que estamos confrontando en Puerto Rico. Le queremos dar la bienvenida al segundo día del International Women Cannabis Congress, el primer congreso en Puerto Rico dedicado a la mujer empresaria en la industria del cannabis, el cual busca proveer un espacio educativo para conectar con personas que aportarán conocimiento y experiencias para aquellas que anhelen emprender y alcanzar nuevas metas en este campo. Antes de comenzar, quiero darle la palabra a uno de nuestros organizadores, a Jaime Batista, que fue uno de los organizadores del Women Cannabis Congress, para que también nos dé la bienvenida. Adelante, Jaime.
Saludos y muy buenos días. Disculpen que no puedo conectar la cámara, es que está un poco dañada y no se me conecta bien. Gracias por estar aquí, gracias por decir presente, gracias a todos los que estuvieron ayer y dijeron presente, y de verdad que las charlas quedaron impresionantes. Todo el mundo que asistió a las charlas dio un tremendo feedback y de verdad que estamos bien contentos debido, aunque sea pues, como quiera con lo que estamos pasando de la tormenta. Como que ahora estamos bien contentos porque hemos tenido un buen resultado y un reach para las personas que puedan pues, tener esa educación y ese conocimiento que nos están brindando todos estos colaboradores. Así que le damos la bienvenida hoy al segundo día online, pero estamos aquí. Así que gracias por estar aquí y vamos a darle duro.
Gracias, Jaime, por tu apoyo y al otro de los organizadores del Women Cannabis Congress. Este congreso pretende ser un evento anual donde se presenten productos nuevos, charlas, seminarios y temas relacionados a los derechos de la mujer, y aquellas interesadas en este tema van a conectar con otras mujeres. El Women Cannabis Congress se realiza a profundos las organizaciones sin fines de lucro, Haciendo, Caminos y Latinas Cannapreneurs, con el objetivo de ayudar a emprender a existentes y a nuevas emprendedoras a realizar sus sueños de crear sus productos o negocios basados en esta planta. Le invitamos a buscar su espacio, a ponerse cómodos para que puedan disfrutar de todas las charlas y conversatorios que vamos a tener en el día de hoy. Les recordamos pues que estamos atravesando un fenómeno atmosférico aquí en Puerto Rico, así que pueden ser que hayan cambios, pero los mantemos al tanto sobre alguna eventualidad que suceda. Pueden ver la agenda en lo que es en su email o en los boletos donde se registraron de Eventbrite para que puedan conocer sobre las próximas charlas. Así que a continuación vamos a darle comienzo a la primera charla. Nuestra primera participante conferenciante es Jane West. Ella nos va a dar una charla sobre es la capital a través de crowdfunding, capital to crowdfunding. Jane West es una activista canábica estadounidense y directora ejecutiva de la marca de estilo de vida Jane West. Así que adelante, Jane West. Thank you for joining us, Jane.
Thank you for having me. This is very exciting. Hi, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, I'm here joining you today. I'm actually, my name's Jane West. I designed over 30 different cannabis products in the space, and I have partners in 12 states of the United States and across Canada. And we have some new things going on in Puerto Rico that I'm very excited about as well. But today, I designed two types of products. I designed some products like vape pens and glassware and items you use every day for cannabis consumption, consumer product goods. And in the past 2 years, I've also expanded the company to start finding cannabis partners. Those are individuals who have licenses to grow cannabis and sell it in retail stores. And those individuals sell the Jane West brand. And that's how I've been able to expand across North America with cannabis consumables. We make mini joints, we make pre-packed glass pipes, which many of you may be able to get access to through the conference. And now this year we're selling 1 gram joints like this size, and also eighths. So those are the products that I sell. And I've been in the cannabis industry now for 9 years. And in order to fund my company, I've followed a not the most traditional route. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, equity crowdfunding. And so first I thought we should start off with, why do we need funding? Talk about the funding options available in cannabis. So very briefly, many companies in the cannabis space right now are actually publicly traded companies through the NASDAQ or through the Toronto Stock Exchange. So the biggest players in the United States, Trulieve, GTI, Cresco, Verano, Ascend Wellness Holdings, a lot of these groups are publicly funded. And that's not the path I wanted to take. It's also an expensive path with millions of dollars in regulatory overhead every year. So the second way that most cannabis businesses have gone to raise money is through private investment, venture capitalists, individuals who are investing in your company and looking for equity. So a lot of small and mid-sized companies have raised money that way. And I have too. I have 23 accredited investors who invested in my company to date at about 1.5 million total. And it was very important to me that my company is diversely owned. So of those 23 investors, 80% are women and people of color. And it took about 2 years to find those individuals and to find a diverse group of individuals. The vast majority of venture capitalists and finance professionals in the United States are men, specifically Caucasian men. And so that was a big challenge. So from 2017 to 2019, as I tried to raise money, I realized how hard it was going to be to build a diversely owned company. And that was when I started looking into equity crowdfunding, which is what I'm here today to talk to you about. So first, just a little brief piece of information about what equity crowdfunding is. Many of you may be familiar with Kickstarter or GoFundMe, and those are ways to just raise money from people. But in return, those individuals that gave you money on platforms like that don't get anything in return. They don't actually own part of your company. Maybe in some cases you send them a product when your campaign's over. What equity crowdfunding is very different than that. And a little bit of background on it. So prior to 2013, everyday people like me, I'm not an accredited investor. I don't make over $250,000 a year. I'm not a venture capitalist. And most everyday people were unable to invest in small startups because they weren't accredited investors. It's kind of it's a bit unjust the way the system is working in the United States. And that is why Obama and the Obama administration in 2013 put acts together for everyday people to be able to invest in startups through this type of equity crowdfunding. That was part of the 2013 Jobs Act. And as a result, a handful of companies in the United States started hosting on platforms crowdfunding campaigns. I think I have to admit, the main platforms in the United States are Start Engine, Republic, and WeFunder. I did my first 3 campaigns on Republic in 2018, 2020, and 2021. And by putting my company, my brand, and my fundraising on a public platform and describing to the audience what my company does and all of our products, that was how I was able to get 3,500 investors from 42 countries and every single US state and territory. And so that gets into one of the pros of equity crowdfunding, is that you're building a large audience and you're able to explain to them what your brand is. And that's hard to do, to find that audience in cannabis. And so this year, right now, I have a campaign that's open. You can Google Mainvest, Jane West, or Francis can put a link, because I'm on a new platform this year doing it one more time. So I've decided to use the equity crowdfunding route. I very much think it's extremely valuable. And one of the things I encourage you to do as we get through this talk and as you have questions moving forward is to take a look at the site, this newest site, Mainvest. A few reasons for that. Most equity crowdfunding sites, you kind of have to really censor yourself the way you're talking about cannabis, because there's still so many different rules in relation to what you can and can't say. On the site Mainvest that we're using right now, there's about a dozen cannabis companies, cultivators, edibles companies, small locally owned businesses, woman-owned businesses that are raising funds. And in order to do so and have everyday retail investors be able to invest in your brand, you need to supply a lot of information for them to review. Your business financials, your pro forma, your plans for moving forward, the products that you offer, many times also the costs associated with those products. There's a lot of information available on each business's website that really helps brand new cannabis startups think about their business plan, their cost of goods sold, and how you want to start framing and presenting your company for fundraising moving forward. So right off the bat, just as you're starting to look for funding in any manner, whether it's through equity crowdfunding or through private investment, I really encourage you to take a look at the businesses, especially that are live on Mainvest right now, because they're plant-touching cannabis businesses and brands. And take a look at all their financials. Take a look at the way they're building their company. It's a great way to just get started to think about equity crowdfunding. So just a few pieces of information about the technical components of it. Like, how does this even really work? So part of Obama's 2013 Jobs Act to allow everyday people to invest in companies created a financial vehicle called a SAFE agreement. And a SAFE agreement is a simple, it stands for Simple Agreement for Future Equity. And one of the things that's convenient about it is I can have hundreds, and in my case, thousands of people who are all invested and in this one SAFE agreement. And that's what they're investing in while your campaign is running. Then when the campaign ends, you get all of their personal information, and all of their shares in your company are held with what's called a transfer agent. That's a cost you'll have to pay for, but it's how you keep track of all the investors and the amount of money that they have, that they've invested in your company. There's a lot of reasons why I talk a lot about equity crowdfunding, and I want new investors and new companies, especially in cannabis, to consider it as an option. And so I thought I could quickly go through some pros and cons of equity crowdfunding, and then take some questions if people have questions, and if we can interact that way. So, okay, so first of all, some of the pros of equity crowdfunding. First of all, as soon as you get your deal page done, you're talking about what your business does, how you're going to make money, and what your use of funds is going to be for the investment people are making. You're out there in the public showing the world your brand and your business. And no matter what, that is valuable. it is very hard in the cannabis space to make impressions, to have people really understand your business, whether that's because there's age blocking, like 21 and over on the website, or whether or not it's hard to just find that audience. By having your brand put together in a well laid out deal page, customers, future customers, as well as potential investors, really start to learn about what you're building. Additionally, some of the best things about equity crowdfunding to me have been that in order to be able to have your company live on an equity crowdfunding site, you're going to have to do a lot of work on your finances. You need to have GAAP compliant financials, and what that stands for is generally accepted accounting principles. So that every single investor can look at your books and then look at another company's books and be able to compare them. So you have to be able to get all of your finances lined up in a standardized manner. And now this is definitely one of the parts of it that I overall is not my favorite thing to do. And working on your books to get them ready for equity crowdfunding, it's definitely not like fun or sexy. However, if you're really building a business that you believe is going to be acquired or bought or have some type of an exit or go through a merger or acquisition, you are going to need this financial information and show your potential buyers or investors that you understand the financials of your company, how you make money, and the actual cost of doing business. And by using equity crowdfunding and having to put your company's finances in this standardized format, you're going to learn a lot. I definitely did. And so if you have to go through that process anyway, I would do it through equity crowdfunding so that you actually have like not only learnings about your business and finances, but also something you can show the world that they can possibly invest in. Through equity crowdfunding, every time I do a campaign, like I'm doing a campaign right now on Mainvest, it's very small. There's only like 14K invested. There's 1 week left to invest. And I'm trying to just raise 30K for like an inventory buy. But one of the best things about it for me is that I've built a network of people who know my brand and who I get inbound inquiries all the time when a campaign is live about business opportunities, people who want to work with me, people who had never like heard about my brand or what I do before. And so in a lot of ways, it's a form of advertising. And as you build your cannabis brands and build out your businesses, you'll find how hard it is to get solid advertising in the space, mainly because of all the suppression and restrictions and outdated, uneducated stereotypes about cannabis. And so this is a way to really work around that. So let's talk a little bit about the cons, the reasons why equity crowdfunding might not be the right fit for you. It does take a lot of work in terms of the finances. So if you don't have your company's costs in an organized manner, utilizing something like QuickBooks, if you don't have an accounting team that can help you get there, you'll combine one to help you get there, and you can definitely do it yourself. Like, it's a lot of work, but it's accessible, it's attainable. So one of the cons is the amount of work that has to go into launching your campaign round in relation to your company's finances. It's a lot. It's a lot. Number two, in the beginning, it is expensive. And by that, I mean, you need to have an attorney review all your documents. You're going to be spending a lot of your time, which is expensive, getting everything up and launching. But I still believe at the end of the day, it's very valuable. When I was raising funds from individuals, like one investor or one investor group, I would spend hours getting ready for the meeting. I would spend all the time in the meeting. I'd spend time with follow-up with this one individual or these one small group. And if they didn't end up investing in the company, all that time, what was it for? Whenever, even though it's time consuming and takes a lot of work to use equity crowdfunding, I at least feel like it's worth it because of all the impressions I'm able to make and all the people that go to the site while it's live and when it's over. Like, even after your campaign is closed, individuals could be able to Google you and look at all your deal page and look at your business. And so it kind of like keeps giving in that manner. So another con or issue with equity crowdfunding at this time is that there are sites that are having a hard time still hosting cannabis companies, and that's unfortunate. And by that, what I mean is there's, with the banking issues in the United States that continue and the limited nature of what we're able to do with merchant services, meaning like swiping credit cards, take money, and banking, in terms of a bank that's able to host an equity crowdfunding like this, it is hard to find. But that's part of trying to do business in cannabis. And so that was definitely always a challenge in what we were doing in getting live. And then additionally, a few other pieces of important information. Equity crowdfunding has been around since 2013, but just last year, a lot of changes were made to the law that empowered companies like mine and CEOs like me to be able to do so much more. So as of last year, the limit of how much you can raise went from $1 million to $5 million. And that's a pretty like serious jump, and a number that if you're able to raise it, you could really get started and get off the ground. Additionally, changes that went into effect last year also allowed for companies to test the waters, which is what they call it. And basically what that means is that before your campaign is live online, you're able to tell the world about it and say, hey, we're going to start crowdfunding soon, and I want you to take a look at my page and we'll let you know when it's live. And that way you're able to like build your audience earlier and expand what you're doing. Prior to those changes going into effect, and when I did my rounds in 2018, 2020, and 2021, you're not allowed to tell anyone about your site until it's live and approved by the SEC. And that just kind of made it hard to like, even we were putting so much work into this deal page and getting it ready to go, but we weren't able to talk about it until this one particular form was filed with the SEC. So now that with these new testing the waters provisions, it gives you even more time to communicate with your audience and build demand around what you're doing and talk about your brand. I speak about equity crowdfunding often with groups and startups, and I'm happy to provide follow-up information to this group. I'm so grateful for Francis for putting this group together and to be able to like talk to you about how I've raised funds for my company, because it is really about being able to control your company and its finances. Being able to manage, like be with VC and independent money, oftentimes and the groups that you end up taking money from, they want control, they want decision making, they want a board seat, and slowly it whittles away your independence as a CEO to manage your company. But with equity crowdfunding, the people that invest, they don't have voting rights in terms of shares, and it still allows you to be really independent in how you decide to build. And I think that's really important, especially for women in cannabis, who oftentimes I'm seeing getting acquired by a bigger company, and then they really like their brand gets really diluted, and what they're trying to build starts to get altered by the investors in the company that's acquired them. So I like it whenever there's an option that people have been able to, that allows especially women to stay in control of their company and manage their brand the way they want. So those are all the most important pieces of information to get started thinking about equity crowdfunding. If my time is up, I understand. Otherwise, I can answer some questions. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jane. Real quick, if you have, si tienen alguna duda, if you have any questions, please write them on the chat. I wanted to show real quick, just presenting the screen, Jane, so you could kind of give us a brief summary of your main invest page.
Yes. So this is my main invest page. We have 1 week left. We're trying to get to 30K. You have to set up the banner, provide some basic information about your company. And then the first slot is talking about the investment opportunity, what you're actually able to invest in and what we'd be using the money for. And then you'll see as you go in, there's the data room. If you click that, this is where you'll learn more about, and this is the part that is very valuable as you go through Mainvest and look at other cannabis companies, not just mine, to see where they're using their funds, about contract staffing, financial forecasts, seeing like what you think will be happening and predicting, forecasting, basically. Some people call it a pro forma. We went very conservative. I definitely want, I'd rather under promise and over deliver. And then here on this list, where it says documents, that's a great spot as you build your cannabis companies for you to look into other companies and their finances, their investor reports, their income statements, and take a look at what you think that you want to do for building your brand as well. Another great spot to check is the discussion section where people ask questions and whatnot. And then I provide, here's a section on all the different questions that investors could possibly ask you about what you're doing and your brand. And then if you click on the updates tab, you'll see while your campaign's running, you'll want to be providing regular updates to your investors about what you're doing, what you've closed, basically like you would for an investor report or update with any like publicly traded company. So so those are all the main, these are all the updates I provided this year so far for this campaign. And it's a great way to just stay personally in touch with the investors.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane, for this incredible knowledge and, your time. This is definitely an option for, different brands and companies to, look for capital.
Yep.
So, ¿hay alguna pregunta? Do you guys have any questions? Just feel free to write me in the chat. I will put the link right here in the chat so you can see the page para que puedan ver la página de Jane sobre esta opción de capital. Así que thank you so much, Jane, for your time and your knowledge in what it is capital through equity, through crowdfunding.
Thank you, Frances. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye. So, le damos las gracias a Jane por su participación. De verdad que es un tema muy interesante sobre las diferentes alternativas para adquirir capital. Ya vemos que esta crowdfunding empezó en el 2013, así que es algo bastante innovador y nuevo para que personas puedan ser partícipes en cuanto a inversión a diferentes compañías, y qué bueno que hay plataformas ahora para que apoyan lo que es el emprendimiento de la industria del cannabis. Así que le queremos dar las gracias a Jane por su tiempo y por su participación. A continuación, vamos a darle la bienvenida a nuestra segunda panelista, que nos va a educar sobre el tema de contabilidad y finanzas al emprender en cannabis y cáñamo. Jessica Velázquez, ella es socia y fundadora de Indiva Advisors, una firma de contadores certificados enfocada en ayudar a las empresas de cannabis y cáñamo a navegar los desafíos únicos en contabilidad, fiscalía y financiera de la industria. Vamos un momentito con Jessica, que nos va a contar más sobre sus soluciones para la industria del cannabis. Estamos con ella en breve. Gracias nuevamente a todos los que están participando del segundo día del International Women Cannabis Congress. Ahora queremos darle la bienvenida a nuestra segunda panelista, quien nos va a educar sobre el tema de contabilidad y finanzas al emprender en cannabis y cáñamo. A través de Jessica Velázquez. Jessica es socia y fundadora de Indiva Advisors, una firma de contadores certificados enfocada en ayudar a las empresas de cannabis y cáñamo a navegar los desafíos únicos de contabilidad, fiscalidad financiera en la industria del cannabis. Adelante, Jessica. Ay, Jessica, no te escuchamos. Estás en mute. Abajo. Estamos en vivo, así que Jessica va a estar prontito con nosotras. Vamos a ver si ahora Jessica. Ajá, the host, gracias. Vamos a ver si. The host. Sí, ahora Jessica, vamos entonces a añadirte. Ahora te podemos escuchar. Mira a ver si estás en mute, Jessica.
¿Sí me escuchan?
Ahora sí te escuchamos. Gracias, Jessica, por estar presente con nosotras.
De estar aquí con ustedes, Frances, muchísimas gracias a esta invitación de International Women Conference. Les mando un fuerte abrazo, un fuerte saludo desde Las Vegas. Y pues, como dijo Frances, soy Managing Partner de Indiva Advisors, una firma de contabilidad. Y sobre el tema de contabilidad y finanzas en la industria de cannabis y hemp. las emprendedoras que están en esta industria. Un poco más fácil de mi parte, voy a cambiar a inglés, que se me facilita un poco más manejar el tema. Ustedes sobre unas consideraciones para igual el tema de accounting y finance en important pieces of your business puzzle, I would say, in starting off in the industry is to consider where it's just you as the owner, where you're going in with other people, possibly business. Other types of entities could also be a corporation. So this is really important because it's really the starting point and the premise for the foundation of other accounting, finance, and tax matters that may impact your business. So I think what those entities mean, the different tax issues related to those various types of entities, and then also ultimately its impact on you and your business in a long-term fashion is really that it's starting to think about all of the systems that your business is going to run your day-to-day operations, food, an account with your chart of accounts for your respective business. That chart of account looks very different for the various verticals in the industry. Different than if you are a cultivator or have a farm and are growing the plant. And so different types of accounts that relate to the vertical that you're operating in, because it will impact how your the various transactions for your business. So I think starting off an accounting system, super important. Sometimes we see clients that go right into operations and they function towards the end or something that is an afterthought. And then when the time comes and financials are needed for a variety of purposes, we find them having to kind of scramble to put things together into an accounting system. So for me, I think this is one of the first kind of real important, system. And into the finance world or accounting world include like payroll systems. You can, meaning perform the functions within your day-to-day operations of your business, or you can also outsource payroll. Other options besides just payroll. I know there's companies that are doing a combination of payroll and HR, let's say. That's going to work with you and system and functions. Also another important one to keep in mind. Within operations of your verticals, other systems that ultimately talk to accounting and that you need to have a consideration for is like your POS system or point of sale system. If you're running a dispensary or any sort of retail, this is up all of your daily sales. the operations. I think is to have these systems. I would say it's even more important to have pretty good familiarity with how to use them and how they talk to your accounting system. Base that although these and there might be some general understanding and use of them. Sometimes our clients and the teams lack training in the systems. And so it's not a bad idea in respect to how to use the software properly. And then also making sure there's good checks and balances in here. You know, it's review procedures, oversight procedures, someone that is going into this all of the right information and that the team is using them properly. Of dollars, taxes, or other inefficiencies within your operations. So consideration, I'd say that's really important for day-to-day business. Processes and finance processes, we talk about what those are in terms of procedures. And so, a dispensary, a cultivation, a manufacturing, delivery, whatever is the various vertical or our business operation that you're working in, it's really what is known as a standard operating procedure that defines how you do specific processes within various areas in your business. And so there are standard operating procedures for accounting or finance functions. Again, oftentimes we find that those procedures, they are located in the operation. You know, folks are maybe aware of them, but they're not really something that is, front and center outside of the core accounting team. And we find more, the team is aware of these processes and procedures that relate to accounting and finance, the more it becomes a team effort to ensure that all of those checks and balances in finance section are there. And so, for example, it's important to have operating procedures around, I think, a very, important business, cash handling, for example. Trade deals cash due to our lack of, banking. Cash duties to people. Process anything major components or items that can be subject to fraud. We encourage at least 2 people a process or overview with those items. So again, things that come to mind is cash. The other big asset in this industry is the inventory or value items that could go either in or miscounted. I talked about earlier the tracking system. Again, it's important that we use it correctly, that we're tracking things correctly, but probably just that we're actually performing physical inventory system. Same thing. but it's important that we count it and we're validating it again, telling us to make sure that everything is on. Having at least 2 people of accounting functions is really internal controls within and finance world. You might say, you know, why is all of this important, and why does it matter? Again, we find that specifically in these arenas, an opportunity for misappropriation of assets, appropriate internal controls, segregation of duties, with appropriate review for these cycles, for particularly this industry where we have these assets that you know are highly valuable and could, you know, really opportunity for, you know, encourage our clients to consider and encourage our clients to really train and oversee with their. There's some really important functions going on in the accounting and finance world. I mentioned again that our business or this industry is highly expensive. And so one of the other things in relation to the accounting system that, you know, I mentioned earlier is having good books and records. And so trying to ensure that we're tracking all of the appropriate business we're incurring on a day-to-day basis. We have bank accounts, and when we're tracking that activity through a bank account, right, because we get a statement items, but right, so both revenue and expense. But sometimes and often we still find that our clients and some businesses are still using cash, right? Again, going back to the fact that we don't have legitimate banking in this industry. Outs of that cash use. So using cash log, and what that is it details out, you know, uses of cash. So cash that's going out, let's say to pay vendors, maybe to pay team members related to the business, like inventory, and then also cash coming in. So this is the revenue that's being driven by the business. Related invoice that expense was for, how much it was for, and then ultimately matches to that cash log for why is that important, you would say. But books and records and being able to support items within your business are important for regulatory reporting, tax reporting, investor reporting, and a variety of other folks that might be interested in your. Those are third parties, right? Everyone that I just mentioned is someone outside of your business. Ultimately, that reporting becomes extremely, I would say, important for the business owners, right? So you know, how well your business is doing unless we're reading financial statements that are, one, accurate, and two, put together timely with support that tell us how our business is doing. Again, I find that accounting and finance is kind of left to the wayside. We get really busy in our day-to-day operations, and this becomes one of those things that is kind of left to the last minute. And so what this tells me is that business owners are not using this information real time to assess how their business is actually doing. Financial statements like a profit and loss statement, like a balance sheet, those are the tools. Business operations. In our field of work, the numbers don't lie. People lie, but the numbers are pretty black and white. And so by this is it's a gut intuition around how their business is doing. Generally, it's something like, oh, I'm doing really good because sales are up. Or, hey, I'm doing really bad because I don't have much cash and we're struggling in that sense. And so, again, generally, I hear comments like this, but often it's not. They don't have like a really good sense of what's going on in the day to day because they are not really looking at their financials. And often, as I said, it's because they're doing it, regular basis. Maybe it's one time a year for taxes. Maybe it's, when they get around to it, a variety of reasons. But ultimately, using those, like I said, statements, that profit and loss, that balance sheet, or even is doing time, is, I would say, one of the key are looking at those financials, understand what they're saying to them. And again, they're working, generally speaking, with their finance professional. Again, someone like myself, possibly, to what all of those numbers mean, say, and how what we're trying to do. So lots of important things happening in those accounting and finance transactions that ultimately bring owners into profitability. Generally speaking, accounting considerations that I'd like to talk about for business owners in this industry. And then I think the that is important too is to tax. So for those of you that operate in the U.S. And have a plant touching business, specifically cannabis, everyone should be aware of a code section called 280E. A plant business here in the U.S. So code section 280E code. Action, because what it does is it disallows any themselves in a Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drug as defined by the U.S. this would fall into that as a Schedule I drug. And what this ultimately means is that business cultivation, production, and the dispensary ultimately can't deduct their ordinary and necessary business expenses. They're really only allowed to deduct their cost of goods sold. Impact that this has on your business is important. And ultimately, this ties back to everything I just kind of mentioned around books and records and why it's important to have not just supporting records for those transactions, but timely recording of those transactions. It gives to to those businesses. So again, if this is not something you're familiar with and you are operating in a business that is hemp became federally legal in hemp or CBD or something. We can breathe a sigh of relief here because 280E does not apply to you. But still super important for you to have all of your business and accounting records up to date. Some of the major items that we talk about with our clients that are extremely important for all of us to understand. And ultimately, again, their impact on our business, on our cash flow, on our growth, those become extremely part of the tools. Business operations and tell us where we need to adjust, either up or down, to really pivot in our day-to-day operations and decision making, again, as business owners, so that we're really striving towards our ultimate goals. So I'd like to close with that. Often too, I see have an idea of what their goals are, but often they don't have an updated business plan. Maybe the business plan that they have was a few years old or just updated. All of all of our clients and certainly all of you on this call, plan should be a on your tool belt that helps guide you in terms of where you're going with changing. To change with that. It may not be necessary, but it's good to look at it and look at it often and see what's going on in your head. Again, don't get updated. So our roadmap, and it's outdated because we're in a different pathway. We're gonna, ultimately drive to the wrong place if that's the roadmap we continue to use. That analogy, again, I find often it's not something that's top of mind. I encourage all of you to really keep that business plan right alongside with you and those financials and hemp business. So helpful to be here with all of you at the International Women in Cannabis to
Gracias, Jessica, por tu tiempo y por tu información. Really quick, I want to show just her website para que vean lo que es el website de Jessica para información sobre sus servicios, Indiva Advisors. Ella está ubicada en Las Vegas, pero da servicio a diferentes compañías a nivel nacional. Así que Indiva Advisors, voy a poner también el link en el chat para que lo puedan acceder y conozcan más sobre los servicios que son muy importantes para cualquier compañía, para cualquier emprendimiento, lo que es la contabilidad y mantenernos en ley. Así que les voy a enviar el enlace para que conozcan lo que es el equipo de Indiva Advisors, que también es liderado y dirigido por mujeres. Así que me encanta toda esta dinámica. Gracias a Jessica por su tiempo y por su participación y por también apoyar lo que es el International Women Cannabis Congress. Les puse entonces en el chat el website para que conozcan más. Gracias, Jessica, por tu tiempo.
Placer. Feliz.
Gracias, belleza. A continuación, vamos a conocer una historia de emprendimiento sobre cómo el sueño de una hija se hace realidad con el apoyo de una madre que ahora son socias. Así que a continuación vamos a tener a Gabriela Rosario. Ella es directora del dispensario Healing Zone. Gabriela.
Ok.
Adelante.
¿Me escucho?
Sí, te escuchamos y te vemos, belleza.
Ok. mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Gabriela Rosario, de la compañía Healing Zone. Tenemos 2 dispensarios corriendo en Humacao y Cagua y próximamente vamos a agregar unas cuantas cosas más uno para Conejito y unas cuantas cosas en manufactura y fábrica.
Excelente, excelente. Eso, cuéntanos un poquito sobre antes de la industria del cannabis, ¿a qué te dedicabas?
Pues la familia siempre ha sido de negocio. Llevamos 17 años corriendo una panadería. Estuvimos 5 años corriendo un centro de cuidado. Y entre otras compañías ha habido mantenimiento, seguridad, transporte. Entramos con una base ya para lo que es la industria del cannabis, como por la seguridad. Tenemos una compañía de seguridad, trabajamos con MCI, como para la limpieza JRD, que no la tenemos ahora mismo en la industria, pero sí hemos trabajado con mantenimiento, o tenemos una base para lo que la salud necesitaba para ya los servicios del dispensario mantenerse limpieza y todos los requisitos que generalmente pide salud en cuanto de limpieza y los estándares. Como te dije, tuvimos un cuidado, subimos desde bases pequeñas, padres y madres con hijos con impedimentos, que quieren un mejor tratamiento para sus hijos, ya que no quieren que estén constantemente con medicamentos, que un medicamento que les caiga pesado, que los haga sentir débiles, que los haga sentir pesados, que le quite la vida a un niño, como lo hacen muchas pastillas en la industria de la medicina general, que muchos que quisieran. Yo me acuerdo de una de las muchachas, de las mamás, que llegó a conseguir goteritos de hemp y eso le estaba ayudando a su hija que tenía problemas digestivos desde bebé, y con gotitas de hemp fue ayudándolo un poquito más en ese de eso. en ese ambiente y así seguimos y como que ahí nos empezamos a ver lo que es la industria. No completamente del cannabis medicinal, pero sí el cáñamo y todo, ahí empezamos a ver. Yo cogí interés porque yo desde los 9 años que tuve un accidente de carro y pues me lastimé la espalda, tengo problemas circulatorios un poquito. So, podemos seguir en esa y yo como que busqué eso ya que es una alternativa porque tanto medicamento que me dieron a mí me lastimó a mí el estómago y me hospitalizaron 2020 con colitis y gastritis a la misma vez. Tuve semanas en el hospital. No se puede decir mucho.
Oh, wow. So, tu familia entonces todos tienen diferentes emprendimientos, son emprendedores, tienen diferentes negocios. So, ¿por qué decidieron emprender en la industria del cannabis, ya que están altamente reguladas? ¿Fue porque ya tenían negocios que eran pues compatibles a las necesidades? ¿O por qué se dio el crear, el establecer un dispensario de cannabis medicinal?
Nosotros vimos que, mi madre sacó la licencia porque ella también tiene sus dolores y todo esto, pero vimos que faltaba mucha información en cuestión y mucho tratamiento de cómo tratar a la persona en la industria. La industria lleva desde el 2000, lleva sus 5 años, nosotros llevamos un año y 5 meses en la industria como dispensario. Como seguridad llevamos 3 y como manufactura tuvimos 2. Hemos estado en un poquito de todo, como dije, manufactura no, la panadería nos ayudó con la manufactura. Pues vimos que faltaba mucho TLC en cuestión de la industria, porque, ¿para qué te ayuda esto? ¿Para qué me puede ayudar esta pastilla? No, te puedes buscar esto, pero lo tienes que buscar por internet. No te lo puedo explicar. Y yo como que, estás en una posición que es el que me tienes que enseñar, porque tú eres el profesional en este ambiente. ¿Cómo es que no me vas a enseñar lo que tú mismo estás vendiendo? Yo no puedo decir que fui a unos cuantos dispensarios y no me trataron de la mejor forma que, ¿me puedes dejar ver la flor? Está allí. Eso me ha pasado, eso me llegó a pasar en dispensario. ¿Y qué es el limoneno? Es un terpeno. ¿Y qué hace eso? Pues lo puedes buscar por internet. No, eso desespera a alguien como paciente, como cliente, como consumidor en general. Yo por lo menos en mi dispensario siempre me he basado tengo mucha información. Vas a ver que mis paredes y mis mesas están llenas de panfletos, de información, de posters. Y si no, te lo busco en internet yo y te lo voy explicando. Y busco el papel o busco la libreta o la tablet, busco el teléfono y te lo voy enseñando desde cero. Y te pregunto a base de todo cómo vas en él, cómo estás en todo esto, cómo entendiste, no entendiste. Siempre intento mantener un margen de que el paciente vaya, que entre con una idea y entienda lo que se está llevando. Que si eso no era lo que iba a buscar y eso fue lo que encontró, vamos a encontrarte la mejor manera de que funcione para ti. Vamos a intentar siempre mantenerte, que tú puedas prosperar en tu día a día. Que tengas tu movimiento, que tengas tu flexibilidad, que tengas todo lo que tú necesites para estar como un ser humano funcional en tu día a día.
Claro que sí, brindar calidad de vida. Tú viste la necesidad, o sea, empezaste como paciente, viste pues que el trato que pues te estaban dando en diferentes tipos de dispensarios pues no fue el mejor y viste la necesidad y creaste esta solución de emprender en un dispensario. Mira qué bonito, porque como tú muy bien dices, es bien importante. O sea, esto del cannabis medicinal es algo relativamente nuevo. Fue en el 2017 que se hizo ley, en el 2015 se dio paso como tal el cannabis. Muchas personas no tienen, o sea, todavía tenemos ese estigma de que cannabis, marihuana y arrebato. Yo creo que esos son los sinónimos de lo que actualmente se ha estructurado, nos hemos informado de lo que es el cannabis medicinal. Es bien importante que cuando una persona vaya, un paciente, darle la información correcta, hacerla accesible, lo que es una planta, porque lo estamos tratando todavía como algo ilegal. ¿Y por qué no? Si es un paciente que está licenciado, que va al dispensario, ¿por qué no ve que vea las flores, que las huela, que sepa lo que está consumiendo? Y esta es una industria que podemos hacer ese cambio en cuanto a lo que son los fármacos, que te dan las pastillas y suelta. Tú no sabes lo que hay ahí, tú no sabes los efectos secundarios que te puede tener. Mírate en tu caso la situación que tuviste y cómo las mismas pastillas y los mismos fármacos te causaron un daño a tu sistema digestivo. Así que es algo que tenemos que trabajar como comunidad y como industria, brindarle esa atención especializada a los pacientes. So, cuéntanos un poco sobre tu mamá, porque yo sé que tu mamá es socia. ¿Cómo fue esa dinámica? ¿Cómo tu mamá dijo, sí, te apoyo en emprender en cannabis? ¿Tenía estigmas? ¿Era algo que tu mamá, que tu familia aceptó? Que está bien, vamos a ver cómo fue. Es sumo central esa conversación para emprender.
Ok, esa conversación fue una pelea como de 3 años que yo tuve. Pero eso no tiene efectos secundarios. Pero es cannabis. Y yo, pero es marihuana. Y yo, no, es cannabis, es medicinal. No me lo tratas de otra forma. Es algo que me va a ayudar, es algo que me va a ayudar con el dolor, que me va a ayudar y que no me va a dar efectos secundarios, me puede ayudar con el apetito, me puede ayudar con esto. Va a ayudarme con el dolor, porque yo personalmente, yo me levanté de algunos días que yo no me podía mover. Como me lastimé la espalda, yo me daban espasmos musculares que yo no podía moverme. Y eso fue el estigma alrededor de mis abuelas. Todavía mis abuelas algunas veces me miran y hacen, ¿qué tú tienes? ¿Qué tú buscas? Que como que yo estoy comiéndome algo.
¿Qué tú comes?
¿Qué tienes ahí? Y ella como que, ¿quieres? ¿Eso tiene cannabis? Y yo como que, no todo lo que yo tengo tiene que ver con cannabis, pero así me tratan algunas veces todavía las personas mayores en mi familia. Como que a distancia de dedos no te voy a tocar, no me vas a dar de eso porque no. Y yo como que, oye, ¿tú me conocías antes de esto? No ha cambiado nada. Que ahora tengo una medicina que es mejor para mí y no quieres probar tú, eso no es culpa mía. Porque ellas todavía están con ay, me duele aquí, ay, me duele allá. Y yo, abuela, vamos a tratarte esta crema. No. Que
todavía
no.
Entonces
sí, mis abuelas
a lo que es el cannabis.
Mis abuelas y mis bisabuelas, porque por lo menos todavía tengo la suerte de tener a 2 de mis bisabuelas vivas. Que Leona las condenadas. Esas están duras que vienen y te cogen en mal lugar y te cogen con una cuchara y yo. Esas me cogieron con una cuchara las primeras veces. Que yo tenía los productos y yo como que, ¡au! Que los tenía más que en la mano, que estaba leyendo la información y, ¿qué es eso? ¡Cannabis! Y yo, ¡ay! Eso dolió, señora, eso dolió. Pero en cuestión de la conversación con mami para el negocio, yo seguía buscándole reportajes y seguía buscándole los videos de los niños con ataques epilépticos y las personas mayores con ataques epilépticas y con Parkinson que están en el tremor constante. Y yo como que, mira mami, mírate esto, mira cómo va, mira cómo funciona esto. Nosotros tenemos una prima con 16 años ahora mismo, qué bueno que está viva, pero ella tiene cerebral palsy, ella no puede caminar, no puede moverse, está constantemente en silla de ruedas. Entre sus otras condiciones, esas son las más notables, esas son sus mayores impedimentos. Y siempre estábamos como que ella no puede casi comer tampoco por los medicamentos y vómitos y constantemente mientras estaba creciendo ya perdió sus dientes, lo que tiene son 16 años. Y yo, mira mami, para Reina, mi prima, y yo, mira mami, esto puede ayudar hasta con Reina, esto puede ayudar con abuela, esto puede ayudar con tití, esto puede ayudar con... No, yo no fui con la mentalidad del negocio en sí. Yo fui con la mentalidad de, es un medicamento, no tanto para el negocio. El negocio llegó en que tuvimos una oportunidad mientras estábamos en la panadería, que llegaron a reunirse en la panadería, a hablar unas personas que iban a abrir una fábrica y se reunieron en la panadería y pasaban todas sus reuniones en la panadería. Eventualmente tuvieron unos problemas que no podían traducir algo y en esos momentos yo estaba trabajando y me preguntaron como que, ¿tú me puedes ayudar cambiando esto? Traduciéndome esto, y así yo entré más en el ambiente del negocio del cannabis. Y ellos se quedaron un rato después y me metieron más en las conversaciones, que los ayudara más de traductora. Y así empecé más en el negocio. Y ahí se lo explicaron más a mi mamá. Y así fue como más, cogí más el push para que ella me ayudara en el negocio. Y así más o menos empezamos con el dispensario. Eso fue por solamente ayudar a alguien que estaba necesitando ayuda con cambiar de idioma.
Oh, wow, o sea, que diferentes definitivamente retos en la industria del cannabis. Para que sepan, se nos acaba de ir la luz acá en el área, pero estamos aquí, continuamos y qué bueno que podemos ser pues partícipes y podemos continuar. Así que sabemos para aquellos que están en Puerto Rico o fuera tenemos una situación atmosférica, un fenómeno atmosférico, así que perdonen los inconvenientes de antemano. Pero sí, Gabriela, que importante es, como tú muy bien dices, educar y saber pues que como pacientes hay tantas alternativas de medicamentos. O sea, sabemos que el cannabis medicinal, de hecho, yo fui una que tenía estos estigmas de lo que es el cannabis, no sabía ni que era una planta, porque nos criamos con ese entorno negativo, esa retórica de que es una droga, pero todo es droga, todo en exceso puede ser una droga, así que es bien importante educarnos sobre el cannabis y cómo entonces podemos hacer pues partícipes y podemos ayudar a otras personas. So, Gabriela, cuéntame un poquito sobre tu rol en el dispensario, porque sé que eres directora del dispensario de Hurricane. So, cuéntame un poquito sobre esos retos o pues tus diferentes responsabilidades como directora de dispensario.
Pues obviamente tengo el aspecto de estar pendiente a las compras, a cómo va nuestro inventario, cómo están los productos. Yo me paso evaluando los productos que nos envían las promociones para ver si eso tuviera un flujo más en mi dispensario como tuviera en el de Cagua, o si no va a tener en los dos, porque cuando tú trabajas en ciertas áreas de la isla, tú sabes cuál es tu base de tu clientela. Por ejemplo, yo sé que a mí me llega mucha persona que me va más por comestibles, flor y puede que algunas veces tintura y vapes y las cremas. Pero yo no puedo decir lo mismo por Caguas ahí tengo un flujo más en flor y crema. No tengo tanto el flujo como que, y en los vapes, no tengo tanto el flujo en comestibles. So, yo evalúo todo eso. También yo me quedo al frente, a mí me encanta bregar con los pacientes. Eso es algo que a mí, en serio, yo me divierto mucho con eso, bregando con la gente, aprendiendo de la gente. Porque cómo vas a saber tu producto y cómo vas a saber cómo lo afecta, ya que el cannabis medicinal, disculpa, ya que el cannabis medicinal es que estaba pensando en mi abuela, en algo que me dijo, que me estaba riendo de lo que estabas comentando de que es una planta. Y me fui en esa de una pelea que tuve yo. No vengas porque tú también estabas haciendo tesis de quién sabe qué. Y yo, mi amor, no te escucho. Cáncer, no te escuché.
Sí, que nuestras abuelas que hacían muchos tesis y lo que consumían, así era que nos curaban a través de los diferentes tesis que nos daban y plantas, y nosotros ciegamente confiábamos.
Sí, y yo como que, no vengas, porque, ok, te dije de mis bisabuelas, pero yo conocí a mi tatarabuela. Esa dueña me duró hasta los 100, esa señora me duró hasta los 109 años. Su mamá duró hasta los 115 años. Que es una familia que dura. Pero son más
Tienen buenos genes.
Sí, yo tengo unos genes. Quién sabe cuánto yo duré. Eso me tiene frustrada a mí. Yo como que voy a ser una vieja pechacada. Porque si me toca un profesor que después no quiera bregar con el cannabis, y yo como que, yo estoy frustrada ya por el futuro. Yo como que,
no, tienes esa ventaja que pueden durar mucho, así que tienes que disfrutar de la vida y alargarla más junto con el cannabis. Quién sabe que las plantas y todos esos tesis que ellas nos hacían para curarnos le han funcionado de tal manera que continúan y tienen esos buenos saludables.
Viejas recetas de ellas, como que de los alcoholados y todo eso, yo todavía las hago. Claro que le doy mi propio twist. Porque eso de la malconcepción del cannabis, muchos pacientes entran solamente por la flor, pero no saben qué pueden hacer, no saben todas las formas que pueden consumirla. Que ellos no saben que el tallo tiene THC y CBD, que el tallo es alto en CBD. Eso no mucha gente lo entiende. Y yo como que cuando estaba leyendo yo, el tallo es más alto en CBD, déjame mezclarlo con algo que ya yo sabía de las medicinas de antes, de las de la señora. Vamos a guillarme de viejita bruja, vamos a hacer mi concucción y los tallos para mi propio uso los metí al colado. Ahí yo creé mi propia tintura, pero es para el cuerpo. Y es buena, eso hecho, te pone la área fría y es bien rico. Es como que cogí conocimientos viejos y los mezclé con los nuevos. Ahí porque a mí siempre me ha encantado, como te dije, conocimiento de tarabuela. Ella, la medicina de antes. ¿Que si pastillas? No. El tececito, la cremita, la mezclita, vamos a hacerte así. Pues mezclé esos conocimientos antiguos con unos nuevos. Ahí creé mi propia medicina y lo mejor para mí. Esa es la forma que yo me he medicado de cierta forma. Que siempre estoy buscando diferentes formas siempre busco las diferentes formas de tinturas o de cómo hacer los comestibles personales para ver cuál es la mejor opción para mí. Si en ese momento yo no estoy con mi vaporizador, pues intento hacer un brownie o intento hacer una mantequilla para poder hacerme algo para yo tener el consumo mío en la forma más factible para mí en ese momento. Y así mismo yo le explico al paciente, porque yo no uso flor, no tienes que usar la flor, no tienes que consumir la flor de esa manera, tú puedes hacerlo de mantequilla, tú lo puedes hacer porque es tu propio uso, eso es tu propio uso, tú no lo estás vendiendo, es para ti. No, pero yo no sé, yo te lo explico como tú quieras que yo te lo explique. Yo le enseño al paciente hasta su propia forma de consumir. Yo no los dejo en el aire, yo les explico todo lo que yo pueda explicarles hasta mi mayor conocimiento y si no, busco una página, busco una receta, les busco toda la información que ellos puedan necesitar para que ellos tengan su mejor forma de consumo para él o ella.
Claro que sí, no, mucha gente sabe pues que la flor, como tú muy bien dices, que hiciste tu propia concoction de alcoholado con los tallos, o sea, siempre tenemos esa imagen o ese pensamiento de que a la flor hay que vaporizarla, es el consumo correcto para la medicina, vaporización para que tenga sus efectos, o pues la gente que siempre lo relaciona con, el arrebato. Y no, o sea, como tú muy bien dices, podemos utilizar toda la planta, como con los teces, a veces infusionarlo con las comidas, porque como tú muy bien dices, es tu medicina, tú lo puedes utilizar como tú entiendas. Y no muchas personas saben que, mira, están los ungüentos, están los parchos, están hasta café que hay ahora infusionado con CBD. Hemos visto como los chocolates, los comestibles, los diferentes ungüentos, o sea que hay una gama de productos que pues obviamente los dispensarios y los dueños de dispensarios deben educar porque son el frontline, o sea, son los primeros que están dándole ese apoyo al paciente.
Sí, uno de los productos que no mencionaste, pero es como que el estigma está todavía porque es algo más privado, es el supositorio. El supositorio también está en la industria y no mucha gente la usa porque no saben del producto, no tienen el producto y no les informan sobre el producto. Está, por ejemplo, por colitis, como yo lo tuve por diferentes razones intestinales, tú puedes usar el supositorio, pero también como mujeres pueden usar el supositorio para dolores menstruales si tienes endometriosis, eso te va a ayudar. Porque creo que fue ayer que tuve esta conversación, pero ¿por qué supositorio? Y yo como que, acuérdate que el cannabis es un relajante muscular hasta cierto nivel y lo que está haciendo tu cuerpo en el tiempo de tu periodo es contraerse y contraerse y contraerse. Al añadirle THC, CBD y el cannabis y todos los otros componentes de las plantas, estás metiendo un relajante muscular en un aspecto leve, pero que funciona de una forma muy buena. Eso ayuda con la endometriosis, con los dolores de menstruación y todo. Es un muy buen producto. Yo tengo muchos pacientes que me van a mí por ese producto, porque yo, a mi entender, creo que soy la única en Humacao que lo tiene.
Sí, ya eso, de hecho, eso estábamos hablando ayer en el Congreso, que había muchos antes, al comienzo, muchos productos especializados para la mujer, como son los supositorios, los parchos, que son muy beneficiosos para lo que son los dolores menstruales. Y son específicos como para la mujer, pero por lo menos acá en el área metro, no los he visto tan frecuentemente como antes. Estaban accesibles, y qué bueno pues que tu dispensario los trae y que pues tienes ese conocimiento de mira, hay diferentes maneras de consumo, y el supositorio, que aunque se ve un poco, o sea, mucha gente no lo entiende, pero es un método también de consumo que es un poco diferente de lo que es el consumo tradicional. Cuéntanos un poquito sobre cuáles fueron los retos que enfrentaste tú al emprender en un dispensario.
Como ya notaste que mi familia ya no confía de mí en nada de lo que tenga que ver con comida, ni postre, ni nada. Pero fuera de eso, no he tenido tanto problema en aspectos personales ni legales. Lo mejor que me ha pasado ha sido la industria del cannabis. He conocido a mucha más gente, como las que conocí ayer. Pero no me ha cerrado ninguna puerta. He abierto muchas más puertas de las que ya tenía. Y por lo menos yo no he encontrado ningún lado negativo personal. Por el momento, tocando madera, que la tengo atrás, no he tenido ningún problema yo por ahora.
Y en cuanto a los procesos de emprender, o sea, lo que son los permisos, lo que son pues trabajar con lo que es el municipio, toda esa dinámica, aunque ustedes vienen de emprendimientos que ya ustedes saben pues ya los marcos regulatorios y demás y lo que necesita, pero en este caso que es una industria novel, que en Humacao hay creo que 3 a 5 dispensarios, o sea, ¿cómo fue esa dinámica, ese proceso? 8, sorry. Antes había 5, ahora hay 8, está creciendo. Qué bueno. ¿Cómo ves esa dinámica? ¿Cómo tuviste algún reto o alguna situación para los permisos o para pues obtener tu licencia?
Bueno, ahí sí tuve problemas, pero no tanto más por el estigma del cannabis. Muchas personas no querían rentar el espacio, ya que Humacao tiene sus áreas de negocio. Muchas personas no quieren vender o no quieren rentar, ya que el negocio es cannabis. Y no, eso es marihuana, eso yo no lo quiero, eso no va con mi religión, eso no va con mi estigma, eso no va con mi crecimiento. Yo no voy a venderte a ti. Ese sí fue, ahora que me lo acordaste ahora, eso fue un problema que sí tuvimos. Eso fue un problema que sí tuvimos en cuestión de empezar para el negocio, pero en cuestión de la permisología y todos los aspectos legales, pues ya teníamos, como te dije, tuve esa conexión con ese encuentro con las personas de la fábrica y me fueron guiando y nos ayudaron bastante en cuestión de la permisología y todo para empezar en la industria, que por lo menos tuve esa mano de ayuda. Esos eran unos inversionistas del extranjero, que en el momento no me acuerdo de casi ningún nombre, pero ellos me ayudaron mucho con eso y ayudar como que, ok, necesitas hacer esto, necesitas ir para este lugar para buscar este papeleo y vamos a ayudarte con esto y estas son las mejores, y me siguieron ayudando en cuestión de la permisología y todo lo que tuviera que ver con los primeros permisos. Y ya al estar trabajando en seguridad, por lo menos tuvimos el entendimiento de cómo se iba a correr las inspecciones, lo que estábamos buscando en cuestión de las cámaras, las inspecciones y todo lo demás, porque ya teníamos el conocimiento de seguridad. Al tener el cuidado teníamos el conocimiento de cómo el estándar de limpieza y el estándar de cómo tenían que estar etiquetadas las áreas y todo eso, y las áreas de limpieza y cómo tienen que ir las áreas de limpieza, y así, por lo menos con eso ya tuvimos una base para todo. Y después con la ayuda de esos inversionistas, pues tuvimos el empujón que necesitábamos para seguir bregando la permisología y todo lo demás.
Pero sí que como ya tienen emprendimiento, ya tenían negocio, compañía, pues se les hizo pues bastante fácil esa transición a la industria del cannabis, que es altamente regulada, pero como ya ustedes tenían esa experiencia en cuanto a sus diferentes negocios, pues me imagino que esa transición se hizo más fácil en cuanto a emprender en la industria del cannabis, porque sabemos que hay muchos retos, hay mucha regulación, como tú muy bien dices, hay que tener cámaras en todos lados, hay que hacer una inversión de local y seguridad y diferentes pues requisitos para tenerlo en la industria, pero qué bueno que ya tienen ese conocimiento y que pues se les hizo esa transición bastante fácil. So, basada en tu experiencia, Gabriela, ¿qué consejo le darías a mujeres que quieran emprender y crecer profesionalmente dentro de la industria del cannabis?
Como siempre, acuérdate que vas a encontrar un techo de vidrio sobre el hombre en la industria, la mujer en la industria, el predecesor que estaba antes de ti, que siempre va a ser como que eso es lo que más siempre te van como que a sentir más pesado, como que, él sabe más que yo porque él estudió esto, o ella sabe más que yo porque ella llegó con esto, o por como muchas industrias pasan, no la industria, pero como muchas empresas y cosas pasan, no, él llegó aquí porque tiene esta conexión o esta otra. No te dejes caer por eso, siempre acuérdate que el conocimiento es algo que nadie te puede quitar y es algo que tú aprendes solo. No necesitas a mucha gente para eso. Sí puedes aprender de la gente, pero es algo que tú también puedes aprender solo. A mí me enseñaron bien pocas personas y todo es yo buscando, porque por lo menos siempre me ha gustado leer. Y a base de como yo crecí buscando siempre medicina alterna con mi tatarabuela y con mi bisabuela, de que no vamos a buscar cuál es el efecto de y con un libro como así de gordo solamente de plantas medicinales y vamos a ver cómo vamos a funcionar esto y vamos a ver, ese libro lo quiero buscar otra vez. que cuando mi tatarabuela murió guardaron un montón de cosas de ellas y se me hizo difícil encontrarlo otra vez y se me olvidó, me llegué a olvidar de él. Pero siempre acuérdate que el conocimiento es algo que nadie te puede quitar, es algo personal. Eso es algo que nadie en esta vida te va a poder quitar. Tú puedes perder el dinero, pero el conocimiento tú siempre lo vas a tener.
Sí, uno de mis refranes, yo tengo muchos, es knowledge is power, el conocimiento es poder. El conocimiento hoy día es tan accesible con lo que es los dispositivos, el internet, y yo siempre también digo, la ignorancia hoy día es opcional. El que no quiera conocer y aprender, si tienes un teléfono, puedes conocer porque todo, desde videos, leer, tutorials, hay de todo para definitivamente conocer. Obviamente no es lo mismo pues leer que hacer como el Women Cannabis Congress, congresos en los cuales podemos interactuar con otras personas, con otros diferentes gremios y otras industrias que también aportan conocimiento a lo que es nuestro crecimiento profesional como emprendedoras en la industria del cannabis. So, para cerrar, Gabriela, cuéntanos cómo te consiguen, dónde están ubicados y cuéntanos sobre tus planes futuros para Healing Zone.
Ok, pues a mí personalmente me puedes conseguir por mis redes sociales, Gabriela Rosario por Facebook, Gávalo por Instagram, ese es el mío. Healing Zone, así mismo, pero todos juntitos, sin la hojita. Lo puedes conseguir en Instagram como Healing Zone Macao y Healing Zone Caguas para las dos, y ahí mismo vas a tener los tags para el Weedmaps que te va a enseñar nuestro menú, pero también nuestra ubicación. Estamos ubicados en Caguas, en la número 1, donde era el restaurante antes. Oh, wow, se me olvidó el nombre. Se me olvidó, disculpa. El Paraíso, donde era el restaurante El Paraíso. 3 luces más adentro después de que pasa la primera entrada para la número 1, a tu mano derecha. Ahí estaríamos en Cagua. Y en Humacao estamos en la marginal, frente a Home Depot y a los contenedores. Es cruzar la luz y estamos en edificio Exótica. Vas a ver nuestro signcito relativamente grande que está por ahí perdón, es que esta camisa no lo tiene, pensé que lo tenía.
Súper, puse en el chat lo que es el enlace de Healing Zone de Weedmaps para que conozcan más sobre Healing Zone. Gabriela, gracias por tu tiempo y por apoyar lo que es el Women Cannabis Congress. Ajá,
Se me
adelante.
olvidó uno. Pronto vamos a abrir el naranjito. Se me olvida
Felicidades.
ese porque todavía estoy como que es nuevo y estoy como que, se me olvida. Con todas las otras cosas y todo lo que tuvimos que agregar por lo de la tormenta, se me olvidó esa. Pero sí, tenemos a Naranjito y próximamente también vamos a abrir otra vez manufactura y la fábrica en la avenida Barbosa, en San Juan.
Wow, qué bueno, o sea, emprendedora full, sumergida en lo que es la industria del cannabis, y eso es lo que necesitamos, más mujeres liderando, y qué bueno que continúen creciendo y fomentando lo que es el liderazgo de mujeres en la industria del cannabis. Así que, Gabriela, nuevamente te agradecemos por tu tiempo, agradecemos a Healing Zone por su apoyo en el primer International Women Cannabis Congress. Esperamos que sea el primero de muchos. Así que gracias por tu tiempo, Gabriela.
No problema.
A continuación vamos a coger un brequecito de 30 minutos. Vamos a volver entonces a las 12 con nuestra próxima panelista, que va a ser Gia Morón. Ella nos va a educar sobre las oportunidades y preparación para el siguiente nivel, to elevate, para elevarnos en lo que es en la industria del cannabis. Así que vamos a volver prontito a las 12 con nuestra próxima charla. Gracias a todos, gracias a nuestros auspiciadores que vamos a tener por aquí para que los conozcan y los vean, que apoyan lo que es esta primera edición del Women Cannabis Congress. Así que nos vemos a las 12, chicos y chicas. tardes. Gracias a todos los que están presentes en la tarde de hoy, en este segundo día del International Women Cannabis Congress. Para que sepan, aquí en Puerto Rico estamos pasando por una tormenta y estamos pues actualizándolos un poquito. Ya hay varias de nuestras panelistas que desafortunadamente están sin luz, pero los mantenemos al tanto de cualquier cambio. Pero queremos agradecerles a todos nuestros auspiciadores que han estado con nosotros apoyándonos, tanto en el día de ayer como en el día de hoy. Así que vamos a continuar nuestro segundo día del International Women Cannabis Congress. En esta charla nos va a acompañar Gia Morón, quien nos va a hablar sobre las diferentes oportunidades y preparación para el siguiente nivel, para elevarnos en la industria del cannabis. Gia Morón es presidenta de Women Grow y fundadora de GVM Communication. Gia. Gia will be with us.
Hi.
Hola, Gia.
Hola. Hola, Bella.
Hola, belleza. It's raining so hard here. Oh my God.
I keep looking at the news and I feel so bad. I'm like, oh my God, I keep praying. I'm praying.
Thank you.
Here's what's so funny. I promise you, I've never, ever, everyone knows this will be in Inglés because no hablo español, like poquito, right? But you know that my family is from Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never, ever done this before. And it's the first time that I actually said, okay, we got to pray for the island. I need to like tap all my ancestors. So I pulled a picture of my grandmother next to me. And this is my great grandparents.
I got great chills.
So my grandmother was born and raised in Cataño. And my great grandparents are from Bayamo. And so I just put this over here. I was like, okay, I need you guys with me today as we pray for Puerto Rico, make sure that everyone is safe, everyone is, you know, has electricity and that they're not affected by the tropical storm, because storms can be just as dangerous as hurricanes. And so, you know that I have family from Puerto Rico as well as from St. Thomas Virgin Islands. So I'm keeping all of you in my prayers.
Gracias. Thank you, Gia. I know it's been a challenge, but thank you for your support to all of our sponsors. And yes, today it's been a hectic couple of days. It's been a hectic week, but today we're getting, at least in the metro area, we're getting, you know, rain. We already have communications from all of our panelists and volunteers that the light is out, but we want to, you know, whoever has the opportunity to continue to support our day 2 of the Women Cannabis Congress. So thank you to all of our supporters and sponsors yesterday and for today, because I know it's been a challenge for those. But gracias, Gia.
And I want to compliment you and give you your flowers to say that you are a perfect example of making sure to get this done no matter what. So many people I have seen that have been impacted by whatever obstacles, and that email that we got that said, look, we're going virtual. And I applaud you for that, because that's exactly what entrepreneurs do, right? Like no matter what you're faced with, you figure it out and then you do your best to get it to the finish line. And Frances, you continue to do that over and over. And I'm so proud of you, and congratulations to you for doing what you have done in Puerto Rico since meeting you several years ago. But even today, thinking about what you're faced with, I think that you are an incredible woman, an incredible example of Latinas in the cannabis industry. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Gia. I am so, you know, happy that you're here. And I always keep it in my mind what you said. The only thing we could do is do our best, and that's what we do, and provide solutions and put our best step forward. So you're always in my mind, Gia. You know, that's all we could do our best, and here we're trying. So thank you so much for your support and for, you know, inspiring us and educating and elevating us about how to, you know, elevate opportunities of women and how to prepare for that next level when it comes to the cannabis industry. So thank you for using me as an example. So you had a vast, you know, experience in the communications industry. So tell us a little bit about, your background and how you came into cannabis.
Sure. And I've been looking at your agenda. So I love that we're going to have this conversation, because I think a lot of us hear about the cannabis industry and believe that we have to have a cultivation or a dispensary. And when I came to the industry several years ago, I thought that I had to have that. But I had already had GVM Communications, which I started April 20th, 2012. No idea. 420. I had no idea. And I go back and I look at my paperwork and the date and I said, but God, right? Like, because I had no idea that I would have been going into cannabis and getting my first clients in 2015. But I had already had the public relations, brand strategy, business development firm. And what I realized when I went to my first Women Grow meeting, someone told me, why are you thinking about a cultivation? Why are you thinking about a dispensary? What you're already doing, cannabis needs. And that's when the light went on. And I said, I can do this in cannabis? I said, yes. People need public relations. They need brand strategy. They need help in developing their business. And so that was all the information that I needed, because I had already had over 25 years of PR experience. So with that, I understood this is just a new product. This is just a new industry, but I already knew the skill sets of doing the work that I'd been doing. And so I expanded into the cannabis industry in 2015 by taking on clients. And it's been incredible. I have a team of 7 women working with me in GVM Communications. I'm so proud that these are a team of women. I don't know how it happened, but these are single moms. These are women who have only but that single salary coming in. And we have worked with some of the most amazing businesses in the cannabis industry. We still work outside of the cannabis industry. And I would tell anyone that is doing this work that you must understand that cannabis will intersect with other industries. And so being still plugged in to the industries that you know about already and bringing that education into cannabis, one day cannabis is going to want to overlap into something you're already playing in, something you're already doing. And so I love it because I have a financial services background. We have an investment bank as a client, and now they're taking on cannabis clients. We have worked with nonprofits that are now beginning to explore what the cannabis industry looks like. And so it's great to be able to have that prior experience and now be able to bring them together. So we have clients outside of cannabis and then inside of the cannabis industry.
Amazing. That's the importance. Like you said, every business needs your expertise. So the cannabis industry is so young that sometimes, like you said, we think that we have to get into the cannabis industry and then the huge investment that we have to make, starting when it comes to the cannabis industry. But we could use our own skills, which is what you did. You're the perfect example how you use your skills for PR and communications into the cannabis industry. So tell us a little bit more about that transition, because I know you do PR, but doing PR and all the different work that you do in the cannabis industry is a little bit different, even though, like you said, they intersect. But what are some of the differences that you have to learn when you came into the industry?
So one of the things that I realized, I've always worked in regulated industries, right? Having worked in financial services on Wall Street, having worked in the entertainment industry, I had to begin to learn the laws and regulations in cannabis. And because some of our clients I'm in New York, so I'm in Nueva York, and when I think about a client that's in Portland, Oregon, or in Florida, or in Louisiana, I have to then learn what those regulations are. So as we are beginning to do the marketing and the PR for those clients, we must understand that we have to stay within the state laws. So that's important to know. The other thing that's really interesting is that my financial services background has helped me more than I ever knew that it would. So I say that to say, when I came into cannabis, there were not a lot of companies that were doing mergers and acquisitions. And what I mean by that is that sometimes if it was a smaller company or a mid-sized company, they were being sold or they were coming together and partnering with a big company. And I have had to do, or I've been tapped by some companies to help them announce that transaction. But had I not had the financial services background, I wouldn't understand that. And so it's been awesome in having that experience. But what was additionally interesting is I also had international business exposure in financial services. And we know that in cannabis, a lot of public companies go public in Canada and they go public in other countries. So having had that understanding, we've been able to help many of our clients as they make their announcements. And then the other thing I'd say is, keeping up again with the regulations as each state on the state side goes legal, and not just from the medical legalization, but also the full legalization of each state. So that was something that I never had to do in my prior life. But here in cannabis, you have to stay up to date with all of the rules and regulations. So we have a client in Louisiana, and every time the state is updating something, my PR team and I are always talking about it. We want to make sure that our clients are not only informed and that they're aware, but now what can we do? How can we announce and publicize their business so that the patients because Louisiana is a medical state, so that the patients know what's available to them. So it's been it's a constant learning experience, but I love it. I love to say I'm a student of this industry because we're all always still learning.
Yes, definitely, especially with all the changes in regulation until there's, some federal policy, in place. There's so many different changes by state, even by county. I've heard that there are different counties that could have their own, rules when it comes to cannabis and regulations. So it's very important to always, be a student, be a student of life and be a student of whatever you'd like to pursue. So tell us a little bit, Gia, about what are some current opportunities you see women having in the cannabis industry?
So it's so interesting because I'm staring at you and I see your beautiful earrings. And I again, coming into the industry, and this is where I love wearing that Women Grow hat, because I have met so many amazing women with incredible business ideas. And it didn't dawn on me again early on that this is an industry with vast opportunities. And so when I think about the jewelry makers, and I thought, that is a business in the cannabis industry, right? What a great opportunity. And I wrote so many notes down here because the more and more that I meet more women in this industry, oh, look, I see Rebecca. The more and more that I meet more women in this industry, I begin to learn more. There are companies that provide staffing, right? And we're running our businesses. There are companies that are scaling and they need more employees. And so there are incredible staffing companies. Again, when we think about waste management, packaging, and I will tell you, the more that I'm beginning to meet more women across the country and even around the world, I applaud them for breaking out and expanding. There's a woman here in New York. She had been in the packaging industry for 30-something years. And when she saw what was happening with cannabis, and she said, I can expand my business. I can provide packaging to the industry. And we think about mostly for packaging, it's often men, right? But there's so many women that can provide that same kind of service. You had Jessica Velázquez on earlier about accounting and our attorneys. I think you may have had Jessica González, I think, or, there's just so many incredible women that are doing what I'd say services, providing services to the industry. I think about our educators. And the reason why educators are so important, not just for the industry itself, but our Women Grow mission is to connect, educate, empower, and inspire that next generation. So when I think about educators, their skill set are needed for that next generation that's going to come in. Look at all of the universities that are now providing cannabis education. And there's not a better time to be an educator, to provide these students with the tools that they need to enter. Because I said it already, we have staffing companies. And what are they doing? They're recruiting for these big companies. So being able to be an educator, providing undergraduates with the information they need to enter into the industry, I think is incredible. Event planners, right? Who would have thought event planning is something that's needed in this industry? But it is, very much so. There are different types of events that I see that happen in the industry. Some of them are focused on business. Some are focused on wellness. Some are focused on very specific sectors. And what I mean by that, when I think about the sciences or anything there, I know that next coming up behind me is Candy Angel, who I absolutely love. Well, she works for a cannabis technology company. And I tell people all of the time that the next rising sector in cannabis is technology. We cannot live without it. Look what you had to do in order to continue the conference. Our cultivators, our dispensary owners, data and resources are important to them, and they need to have these technology software in order to provide them the information that they need to continue to scale and grow. And so what I am not seeing are enough women in technology. And we know that in mainstream, that's already an issue. And what I hope in cannabis is that more women will be drawn to that canna tech space, and they will be able to become our next engineers and developers in this space. I'm meeting tons of people who are developing apps. And I think it's amazing. There's an incredible woman in California that has a digital technology, a digital app service. And she and her friends came together, and I'll save that when we talk about crowdfunding a little, because I know you had someone on earlier talking about crowdfunding. But this is a young lady that studied tech, and she got her degrees in engineering, and she put together her small team. And they're now in the canna tech industry in space in cannabis, because they realize there's a need for more technology, software, and applications to service customers.
Amazing. So there's such a vast opportunity, like you said, that sometimes you only focus on the plant touch base, but our expertise, like you said, for example, this was from Colombia, one of our trips to Colombia, and the women there, they do different types of entrepreneurship of businesses. And this is, like you said, it's earrings, it's jewelry, is part of getting into the cannabis space. So it's so great that sometimes we need to change our shift, change our perspective in how to get into the cannabis industry, since it's so novel. Most of us have been working for so long, and we want to be able to provide our services into the cannabis industry. And it's an industry that needs lawyers, marketing, PR, event planning, technology, like you said, because, we're moving in a fast world space, and this is how we could connect in a global way. So
Can I add something to that really quickly? Because I would not serve my Latina women if I didn't say translators. And here's why. Because we have an industry that predominantly speaks English. Yet we are looking to invite more people to become patients of this industry, to become educators or whatever. And if we don't start translating this information in Espanol, we're going to lose a lot of people who are going to continue to carry the stigma. They're not going to understand that the benefits of this plant could help them in so many ways, either medically or professionally. And being able to be bilingual will help so many of the companies, not only stateside, but globally. In Panama, they just had a conference. In Uruguay, there's so much business that's happening there. In Argentina, you think about all of the countries that are now coming into the cannabis industry. You have Spanish language countries that are looking to expand into the US. They need translators. You have English speaking countries as well as the US that are now looking to expand into other countries. And being able to be bilingual, to not just speak, but to write and be able to read, I think is a huge skill set. Being that we are Latinas in this industry and being able to help these companies expand into broader markets and tap all of this talent that you have here, I think is incredible. And so I didn't want to miss the opportunity to say, as Latinas in this industry, if you are Spanish speaking, if you can read and write, and you have such a service and you are a valuable asset to the cannabis industry.
That is correct. We've seen how Latin America is, it's legalizing rapidly. Mexico, Colombia. That in Colombia, we're going to go for the second or third time this, in the past years, because of the knowledge that women have. They have medical use. They could, home grow up to 20 plants. So they have such a vast knowledge, and that we could share. We could be, productive when it comes to sharing our resources and learning about the ancestral uses in Colombia, in Jamaica. They have, like you said, in Panama, how the day before of the conference, they made an announcement with the president about the legalization of it. So it's amazing how Latin America is definitely and quickly becoming part of the legal cannabis industry. So yeah, we've seen that in the past years, there's been a decline of C-level, of executive level, women presence in the industry. What are some suggestions, opportunities, or practices that you see for women to, elevate to that next level in the cannabis industry?
I love this question. And I just came from a conference in Chicago, Benzinga, and it's primarily focused on investment. And one of the women that I met there is an executive recruiter. And she said, my goal is to get more women back into the C-suite because they've lost so many. And there are a number of reasons why. I think women's circumstances, of course, are very different than men, right? Our responsibilities are different. If we're single head of household and you're not making any money, you then have to make the decision to sometimes leave. And, when there's also a downsize, oftentimes when they're downsized in company in terms of layoffs, you're going to lose incredible talent. And so when I think about the number of women that have left, and I say, well, how do we get them back in? Well, in Benzinga, I met so many women. We were in little circles and we were thinking, this person doesn't have a job. we're going to recommend them for this position. And part of that is, yeah, I still believe in the word of mouth delivery, right? I still believe in sharing our resources and our network to help others get into those roles. The other thing is, like, I think about what we're doing. Networking is key. I also think about the partnerships that we're doing here at Women Grow with some of these big companies. And many of them have said, look, we're looking to get in touch with some of those women. And so we're holding them accountable, because speaking it and just saying it isn't enough. We have to make sure that they are following up, right? And that they truly mean what they say. Now, the other piece of that is speaking to the women that are looking to re-enter the industry, because again, we recognize that the responsibilities aren't just for themselves, it's oftentimes for their families. And so they are looking for the benefits. They're looking for the salaries that can sustain them and their family. And so it's a matter of making sure that women are getting equal pay, right? And that they're not being paid below what their male counterparts are being paid. And so how do we help women do that? Well, some of the things that we're looking at is making sure that women are speaking up and are demanding their worth, right? If you came from a mainstream industry and you were making $250,000 here, and then you come into this industry, and then you see some of the men that are making a little more, but they're looking to pay you below, you then have to find out either why, and if they're able to meet that salary request, or we help them find those other opportunities. And that's what I mean, like through our resources and network. There's always going to be a cycle within an industry. I've seen it in cannabis. I've seen it in financial services. We've seen it in so many other industries. For me, I see this as an opportunity for us to take a look at what we're doing well, where we can improve, and what companies do we hold accountable. And so when you ask, how do we help get more women back into the C-suite? We make those recommendations. Every time a company has reached out to us and say, who do you have? Of course, we're going to identify women. Of course, we're going to suggest, well, why aren't there any women on your boards? And it's not that you just put any woman on there. They're looking for qualified women, but we know we have more than qualified women for these roles. Another example that I want to give, Tanya on our team said, you know, I was exploring an opportunity, and I said, you should. Don't limit your possibilities in this industry. She came back to me and she says, well, they told me I was overqualified. And I said, okay. And she says, but they asked me to join their board. And I said, absolutely, jump on it, do it. And the reason being, whether if it's a paid or non-paid opportunity, it's the opportunity of being a voice on that board to then help shape and perhaps even help change some of their approaches. And so I was so proud of her for sharing that information with me, because I want more of us to be open with each other and not feel like that it's a competition, because it's not. We can't afford to be competitive when there's so little of us that are not in these senior leadership roles. And so at this point, I always believe in lift as you climb, and being able to share with your friends and your sisters and your colleagues to say, hey, there's an opportunity here that I believe could serve your professional career, your business, or just, your knowledge.
Amazing. I love that. Lift as you climb. That is such a great perspective. And that's what our intention is with the Women Cannabis Congress, with Latinas Cannapreneurs, and with Women Grow, to unite our voices, to help each other out, because we need that. I always say hay bizcocho para todos. There's cake for everyone. There's so many opportunities in the cannabis industry, and our voices, our experiences they're what shape us, and we can connect with different types of audiences. And it's great to know that there are companies like, the recruitment company that you mentioned, that they're looking to, when they have an opportunity to, C-suite or C-level opportunities, women. And of course, that's where we need to, help each other out and always help us shine. We can make each other shine when we work together. And that's such a great way to, elevate and help each other get to the next level. So I want to thank you, Gia, for being with the panel here. Shortly, we're going to have Candy, so please stay with us so you can support us in that talk with about social impact. So thank you so much, Gia, for giving us that talk about, how to get to the next level, the many opportunities that we have into the cannabis industry.
And thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on your event.
Thank you so much, Gia. And thank you for supporting always our initiatives and all the crazy things that we do. And hopefully we hope to see you soon in the island. Just so you know, we plan for the second edition of the Women Cannabis Congress on March 18 and 19 of 2023. So just so you can have it in mind on your agenda.
I will be there. If my flight wasn't canceled, I would have been there.
Gracias, Gia, por apoyarnos y apoyar el crecimiento de las mujeres en la industria del cannabis. So, ahora nuestras próximas panelistas van a educarnos sobre el tema de lo que es la política y el impacto social del cannabis. Y esto nos va a traer Candy Angel. Candy es directora de T.E.A.L, de Weedmaps, de Together for Equity, Access and Legalization. Unidos por la equidad, acceso y legalización del cannabis. Así que déjenme aquí con Candy. Candy, adelante. Hola, Candy.
Hi.
Hola, belleza.
I'm here in my room, stuck in the hurricane.
Yes.
Puerto Rico.
For those who don't know, Weedmaps is one of our, main sponsors, and they were here. The entire team is here in Puerto Rico, and they caught their first hurricane. So they got the first, hand experience of what it is like to live in the island when we have certain hurricanes. But they're safe, and we hope everyone is safe. Espero que todos estén sanos y salvos, y le damos las gracias a Weedmaps, a nuestros auspiciadores, a nuestros panelistas y voluntarios que han estado aquí con nosotros. So just Candy, tell us a little bit about your current role before cannabis. We know your current role about Weedmaps, so tell us a little bit about how you came prior to the cannabis industry.
So I was working in the home building industry when that crashed in 2008. I thought it was going to be my career for my whole life, but things changed and I had to look for a shift. At the time, I was smoking a lot of weed. And so I was trying to find a way to get into the cannabis industry because I was living in California and it was legal through Proposition 215, which was the medical legalization in California. So I took a really low-level job making ID cards with Dr. Bonnie Goldstein at medical marijuana evaluation centers. And from there, I met the owner who soon became the CEO of Weedmaps. He had also ownership of the medical marijuana evaluation center that I worked at. And he kind of just brought a team over to Weedmaps back in late 2019, late 2009, early 2010. So I joined the team in January of 2010.
Wow, amazing. And you joined the team as the first women in Latina.
Yes.
Amazing, amazing. That's, a great accomplishment in how, men supporting women and supporting our growth into different positions. So tell us a little bit about your work and what is social impact?
So T.E.A.L is, as you said, stands for Together for Equity, Access, and Legalization. I launched that in 2019 with the support of our CMO at the time, which is now our COO, Juan Jofejo, and he recognized that a lot of the things that I was proposing were very focused on lifting up minorities and women in the cannabis industry. And so he gave me that boost to do something more with that. And at the same time, our CEO mentioned that he wanted to do something for social equity businesses, which had just become a thing kind of in 2019. So he also, like, at the same time, wanted to do something for them. So we came up with T.E.A.L, and T.E.A.L then became an umbrella for our social impact. And so social impact, I think, can mean something different for a lot of industries, but overall social impact is a positive action or positive things that help address injustices and maybe challenges that we're seeing in the industry. And I think it's really important in cannabis specifically because people are still in prison for cannabis. And this is still a very real thing. I know we say the failed war on drugs, but the reality is that there's still a war on drugs. There's still a war on Black and brown people, and they're still incarcerating our people for cannabis in states where it's legal. And so I think that's an important thing for cannabis businesses to be addressing. I personally would not be able to sleep at night if I knew that I was making money in this industry and not doing something to help address these injustices. And so that would be what social impact is to me.
Wow, definitely, especially like you said in the cannabis industry, where they're still, because of that it's not legal federally, we have people incarcerated, and there's companies who are still, making billions of dollars in the industry when we still, again, have imprisonment, we have inequality, we have so many injustices that were blamed on cannabis, which is now, a complete illegal market. So like you said, social impact does mean different things to different companies, but especially special, it's special when it comes to the cannabis industry. So tell us a little bit about what is the political and social impact of the legalization of cannabis in the U.S. since you through Weedmaps, you've seen how it has grown from, California to Colorado to New York to now being a publicly traded company. So what are some of the political and social aspects of the impact?
So I think on the political side, the main thing is that policy is shaping what the impact is that we're seeing from legalization. And so making sure that, and I think this is a good example, is that Puerto Rico still has an opportunity to do this because it is only medical here. So once you guys start going for adult use cannabis, which I'm sure, I don't know if that's happening right now, but making sure that you include social equity programs, right? So social equity programs are to help those who have been impacted by the war on drugs, those who have been incarcerated or have been impacted by their family members being impacted. Because the reality is that when somebody is incarcerated, it's just not that person. It's not just that person who's impacted, it's also their families. A lot of times that person is the head of the household. And so that household falls apart, or oftentimes the woman has to really step up and be the main person on top of taking care of the kids, on top of paying all the bills. So it's whole families that are impacted. And so social equity programs written into policy at the forefront of your legalization efforts is extremely important. So I think that's the main crossroads that I see there. And requiring every business to do some type of community give back, whether that is in like your neighborhood, that you have your dispensary, that you're doing something for the neighborhood that's positive changes, right? And then also, if you're just in the industry and you have a business, requiring that you have a diverse business. Maybe it's a certain percentage of women and people from your community who have been impacted by the war on drugs, or that are just in your zip code, to make sure that you're bolstering your community's pockets. So
Yes, definitely. It starts little by little. Like you said, we could make an impact within our community where dispensaries, manufacturers are located with any businesses. I think it's very important that we refocus on giving back to our community because that's where we spend most of our time. And we definitely is something that we could incorporate with any businesses. I think if we do that, not only in the cannabis industry, but in other businesses, I think it would make it more successful and more diverse. And when it comes to adult use in Puerto Rico, yes, we actually, one of the first panels that we have was the legislator that is working on the adult use project that we're trying to, launch here in Puerto Rico. So yes, Puerto Rico, it's moving. Definitely the talk yesterday with Hector Ferrer gave us insight on how we as a constituents, as a community, as patients, can touch on our legislators' door, our senators' door, and say, yes, we need to approve a legal use. We need to approve adult use. And educating. I think that's very important. Like Gia said, education is so important, especially our leaders, our political leaders. Most of them are of a certain age and demographic that are still instilled with that stigma that, oh, it's cannabis, the smell. Oh, cannabis, medical cannabis means smoke it, arrebato. We still have that stigma, especially with our leaders. So it's very important that us as a community, as part of the environment, the cannabis industry, support and touch the door and make that political impact when it comes to the cannabis industry. So I know you mentioned a couple of ways that businesses could focus on social impact. So what has Weedmaps done? Because I know you guys, the growth has been very rapidly. So what are some of best practices, or what has Weedmaps integrated within your new direction of director of T.E.A.L?
So a couple of things. It started long before I was in this position. We have a government relations team now dubbed as the public affairs team, but we have about 20 people who are extremely talented folks working on policy across the country, and also nationally. Internationally. Rebecca is actually on this call. She is on our international policy team, as well as she supports me with all of our T.E.A.L initiatives. And so we've been working on the policy side of things for, I think we've had an official team for over 5 or 6 years now. I think 6 years, 7 maybe. Ooh, I don't know. But to say is that we have been working on that policy side, focusing on these initiatives early on. And I think one thing to remember is that we have cannabis legalization because of patients, because of the medical parts of this plant. And oftentimes with adult use cannabis, we forget about the patient, right? We're just like, okay, how do we make this money? How do we make this for all adults? But there's still patients who really need this for medicine. And so we need to make sure that that is also written in the policy and that we have programs that exist for that. So with that, Weedmaps has also been supporting veteran organizations, nonprofits for patients, being able to support them with getting their medicine in these markets that are heavily taxed. So making it affordable or free for patients is one thing that Weedmaps has focused on. And then in our newer efforts, I would say for the past 3 to 4 years has been the social equity aspect, and that is pushing for those impacted by the war on drugs, pushing for them to have licensing opportunities, but also promoting and educating the things that Gia was talking about and saying that you don't have to have a license, you don't have to be a plant touching business to make money here. So offering free education to people, and the route that Weedmaps has taken to offer this education is partnering with these smaller nonprofits who have been doing this work for very long, but they might just not have the resources to do it. So being that we are a bigger corporation, taking our money and utilizing that to support mostly these nonprofits that are doing this education are women of color. Most of them are doing this work and have been doing this work long before Weedmaps came to do it. So supporting them and giving them the resources that they need to do this on a bigger level is the route that we've chosen to take, because we've recognized that, yeah, we can do this, we have the money to do it, but how are we really supporting the community and doing this work that we're claiming to do by coming in and doing the work that women of color have already been doing for many years? So giving them the resources to do that. It's not just women of color, there's also men that are doing this as well, but just recognizing that there are these nonprofits out there that are doing this really good work. And if we have the funds to give to them to continue to do that work or do it at a bigger level, that's the route that we take to do that. But we want to make sure that education is free and available for everybody. And so doing that is one of the things that we do. What's Gia saying? Yes. Always putting other people on these, giving people to speak and use their voice on bigger platforms is also something that we do. I mean, these things just come naturally after a while. Like years ago, I made the commitment, any panel that I put together for any education will have at least 50% women and will be a diverse panel, not just white men like we see on a lot of other panels. So making sure that everything that we do is sticking to what we're preaching about T.E.A.L or about any of our social impact efforts, because that does include diversity and inclusion, because these are the people who are often left out of the industry yet are the most impacted by the arrests that happen in our communities. So did I answer your question? I know I kind of went on a tangent there.
You gave us a lot of valuable information, and Gia was saying and amplifying these women and their work. Thank you, Candy. Yes, that's definitely how we could support each other and be able to, diversify and be committed. Because sometimes, like, for example, it happened to me during, forming the event. Not a lot of women are in the cannabis space, especially Latina women. So I wanted to actually ask you now that you're in a high level position, what challenges as a woman, a Latina, because most of those rooms are full of white men.
I prefer not to talk about that. I have a lot of trauma that I've suppressed. No. All jokes aside, it was a struggle. And I think a lot of times our voices aren't heard. And even I was a pretty loud and not giving up type of person. And so I definitely always made sure that my voice was heard, even if it was annoying. I mean, sure, it's going to be annoying to you because you don't want to face the facts right now, but there's truth behind my words, and I'm going to keep poking at you, because if we're going to be, you're never going to succeed if you don't do the right thing. And so you need to always put what's right first, and the rest falls behind, right? So it's always, yes, you have to put in the work. Yes, you have to do all this stuff, but you also have to do good by your people and your communities to be able to get there. And so just kind of like, hey, we got to be these people. We got to be these people. I think they eventually heard me out, and they genuinely care. So it wasn't as hard as maybe other people might experience, because I know that in my role, the hardest thing for a lot of people is getting the approval of the C-suite, but I stepped into it with the C-suite backing me already. So I had a little more like luck there, I guess you can say. But it's just making yourself heard. Like, you can't back down. I used to be really quiet and not want to be, I especially never wanted to be in the spotlight, but it was actually Jessica González out of New Jersey who told me just a couple years ago, like, hey, there's not enough Latinas like speaking up or utilizing their platform. Like, you need to start speaking and you need to start utilizing your platform. I was like, I hate this. Like, I hate public speaking, but she's right. And the more that I see Latinas doing this, like, the more proud I become and the more excited I get to do it. So I think it's supporting each other is going to help us get to where we need to be. We really need to make sure that we're not pulling each other down to try to get to the top. And that was probably the hardest struggle that I've seen in my career at Weedmaps, or just in the cannabis industry in general, is that women want to tear you down because they think there can only be one woman at the top. And so sometimes, and men do this to us though, is that they make us feel like it's a competition between us. Like, oh, there's another girl here. What are you going to do? Like if it's a competition versus like, no, let's join together, let's work together, and let's become badasses together, and like, let's crush it together, because the more women at the top, the more that we're going to succeed. The more diverse these voices are, the better the company is going to do. It's proven. There's like ROI for it. We can do this, and companies are starting to see that. Sure, it's slow, but they're finally starting to see it and recognizing it and making the changes that are needed. Yeah, Gia.
Definitely, that's something very important. Like we spoke with Gia, how do we, lift each other up? It's not a competition. There's space for everyone, and that's something that with Latinas, Cannapreneurs, with the Women Cannabis Congress, that's what we want to highlight. That there's space for everyone, and even in their own, niche, there's different types of, spaces where we can be heard, where our audience is different, and I always say we all shine brighter together. And that's something that we want to incorporate, and want to thank, Weedmaps and all our sponsors for our support. Gia here says it's so important for us Latina women to speak up and be heard. There is enough room for all of us. Badasses together. Sí, claro que sí. There's room for everyone. And I know that you mentioned, especially being women, and sometimes being in the cannabis industry, we're the only women in the room. It has happened. And it's very challenging, and I think one of the key things is to be consistent, like you said. And some of us just get because I was one of them, like if I heard or no, I kind of like went like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, because it takes like 1,000 no's, but all you need is one yes, and that yes is that thing that could help you out. And we need the support of those men also to lift each other up, to help us out. And that's something that you were given the opportunity since the beginning to level into growth and to help other women within the space.
And I think too, like in the early days, like and this is something I regret that I did, but it was kind of just like my go into action. And that's that I tried to be one of the guys. I tried very hard to just be one of the guys and fit in and not be so femme or be all these things that people look down on as women. But now I look back and I'm like, that's our strength. Being vulnerable, being emotional, giving a shit about these things is so important. Like, it's okay to be a woman in the space. It's okay to be feminine. It's okay to have vulnerabilities. It's okay to help other women. So I think that in the early stages, like I was much younger and didn't have the other women around me to start recognizing this, but through support groups within Weedmaps, like we have our employee resource groups, Women of Weedmaps, and through that we've been able to be more vulnerable with each other and help me identify like what I need to do better. And it's really helped me grow in my career and just as a person in general. So I think the need for trying to be one of the guys in a very masculine space is overrated. And it's something I did for years, but it's overrated, and it's time for us to really step up as women for being women and not for being like a guy. So I think that's an important too.
That's definitely very important, especially when with your background, prior to cannabis, you were in a very male-dominated, space industry, which I'm assuming you had to be strong and deal with these conflicting characters. And then moving into the space, of course, we want to be one of the guys because they're the ones making the decisions. But when you see that there's power, and we have to accept the fact that we're women and we're vulnerable, but we're the ones behind doing all the work. Yeah. And when you see the companies, they may be the CEO or the president may be a man, but who's doing all the work? Yep. Who's the assistant? Who's the the executive level assistant? I would bet 90% of them are women, and they're the ones doing the work. But sometimes it takes, like you, for example, like you didn't want to be part of the the public life, but we have that responsibility to show other women that if I can do it with with my challenges, you could do it too, because that's what inspire us to get to the next level. Like I look at Gia, I look at Candy, and when I started in this space, I didn't know many women. So me, I started researching, but looking at other women that are so accessible, so approachable, and telling their story, like there's growth, there's power in that. And we need to definitely support each other and highlight and lift each other up. I think that's something very important. and how the work of, you being a leader now in social impact, that not only as women, but you're helping communities of minorities, of people who were victims of the war on drugs. So now we see that, not only a Latina, but a woman is in the position of power to make a change and make that impact. So what are some of the practices? I know you mentioned that, Weedmaps does a lot of, social work, but how can we as businesses provide our community with social impact initiatives?
Well, I think first of all, you have to vote, right? So making sure that you're paying attention to the language and the policy that's being represented, and making sure that it does include the community, and it's going to affect you whether you vote or not. So voting is going to be extremely important here, and I think that's the first step for everybody to get involved. Secondly is just help spread the word and education to break down that stigma, especially in Latino communities. We're seeing that it's still very like my nana still would be like, don't do that. Like I don't even know if she knows what I do for a living. I think she thinks I work in the medical field still. I don't know. So I think having those conversations is going to be really important, right? Like making sure that people understand that it is a medicine, and I know that Gia and Shonda say this all the time, whether you think you're smoking it as medicine or you're using it as medicine or not, you definitely are, for every reason. It's like, I just do it to relax. Guess what? There's pills for that. I just do this. So everyone has like a medicinal purpose for it. They just don't realize it. So kind of breaking that down and educating people, I think, is pretty important. And for everything else, get involved, support each other, make sure that you are representing for your people, because representation matters, and language matters. And so making sure that we're conscious of the language that we're using when we're speaking about this is going to be important. And yeah, I think that's about it that I could think of. Please, if you could think of anything else, let me know. I'm just going off the top of my head here.
No, thank you, Candy. I'm going to show the screen so they could look at the, Weedmaps policy website, and how, Weedmaps and technology are committed to providing social impact to the businesses and to the community. So I will also share the link in the chat so you can look at through the different. I was looking at the priorities that you guys, have in mind when it comes to the policy, social impact that you guys have. So perfect. Thank you, Rebecca. There you go. WMPolicy.com, and you can learn more about the different initiatives that, Candy, Rebecca, and Gabby from Weedmaps are definitely supporting. And we definitely need that in Puerto Rico. That's something that we need to work. That's so important about, like, for example, in New York, how they're doing the social equity program. Yeah. That's so important. And right now in Puerto Rico, we're still getting over the notion that it's medical, but there's so many other opportunities that we could give to our people, that incarcerated, people at the moment, we could just, give expungements, because right now it's a multi-million-dollar business. So there's definitely a lot of work that we have to do.
Yes, and there's a lot of companies or nonprofits out there that are helping with that. So you have your Minorities for Medical Marijuana, you have Last Prisoner Project. These companies are doing the work for helping people with expungements. There'll be local expungements all over the country. There's helping prisoners with release. They help the families of prisoners that are still incarcerated, that they're trying to help get out. They help those families with grants to help keep them afloat. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't understand with some of these nonprofits. But even with legalization and expungement being something that's written in, doesn't always happen like that. It still takes dollars. It still takes an effort. It just doesn't wipe your record clean without an effort from yourself. So making sure that you sign up for newsletters and understand that expungements are happening all the time, all over the country, to help you for free to getting your record wiped clean if you live in a legal state. So make sure that you're looking into that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Candy. Gia and the entire Weedmaps team for supporting the first Women Cannabis Congress and believing in Latinas Cannapreneurs and our mission to inspire, educate, and elevate. And I want to thank you because we just had our first event. Our power went out.
Yes, it did go out. I think I'm still here. Am I still here? I'm here. Our power just went out at the hotel, so we're living the real hurricane life.
It went out in my house too. I just haven't connected to the hotspot. So thank you again. It's been an experience. Again, March of next year, we hope to have you guys. And this is part of the experience of living in Puerto Rico. So now you know the challenges that any business, especially the cannabis industry, has. And we are very happy and glad that you could support us. So thank you so much. We hope everyone is safe. Thank you, Candy. Thank you, Gia. And thank you for the support. And hopefully we're going to take a break now. We'll back in here in an hour. So hopefully everyone has light and we could finish our second part of the day. So gracias. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you so much for having us.
Saludos. Estamos aquí de vuelta a lo que es este primer congreso de Women Cannabis Congress, un congreso histórico. Definitivamente ha sido una experiencia de vida, ha sido retante, pero aquí estamos, lo hicimos, lo logramos. Queremos primeramente informarles que desafortunadamente debido a situaciones ajenas a nuestra voluntad, situación atmosférica se está intensificando en Puerto Rico. Ya muchas de nuestras panelistas nos han informado que están sin luz. Hemos estado en constante comunicación con nuestro equipo y obviamente esperemos que estén bien y seguros, y esa es nuestra prioridad. Pero lo dimos a cabo y sabemos que el próximo año, marzo 18 y 19 de 2023, va a ser una cosa hermosa porque ya vieron nuestra visión y nuestra intención de inspirar, educar y elevar, y la necesidad que hay para resaltar lo que es a la mujer en la industria del cannabis. Así que gracias a todos nuestros sponsors, pero antes de agradecerles, Jaime, para que tomes la palabra como cierre.
No, pues quiero agradecer también a Latinas Cannapreneurs por ayudar y apoyar a que esto sea cierto, esta visión que creamos juntos, que se logró. Logramos unir estas maravillosas mujeres, logramos que se llevara el mensaje, logramos que, aunque contra viento y marea, logramos hacer el cometido y llevar el mensaje que queremos. Y esto es un preámbulo para marzo 18 y 19 de 2023. Vamos a estar literalmente haciendo este evento mucho más grande ahora porque tenemos el apoyo bien grande de la comunidad, así que estamos bien emocionados. Y quiero agradecer especialmente a Weedmaps, a Women Grow, a Organic Job Source, a Indiva Advisors, a Strain, a Sens Culture y a todos los demás que han estado ahí presentes para nosotros, a Jane West también. Y nada, de verdad que es un sueño, aunque no quedó como que teníamos imaginado, pero quedó legendario, quedó maravilloso. O sea, para mí quedó histórico. Hicimos una historia que hay que contar y se seguirá contando, y en marzo esto será eco de lo que va a pasar.
Claro que sí, creamos un precedente. Espero que todos estén bien a salvo. Esperamos que haya sido de su agrado y de mucho enriquecimiento a pesar de las situaciones que hemos pasado. Gracias a todos los que fueron por primera vez y nos apoyaron y conocieron las mujeres que hay detrás de esta industria que quiere unir a la comunidad, hacer que inspiremos, eduquemos y elevemos a otras personas. Así que gracias a nuestros auspiciadores Haciendo, Caminos, Latinas Cannapreneurs, Weedmaps por ser nuestro host sponsor, a Women Grow por su apoyo incondicional, a Sens Culture, Organic Job Source, a Jane West, a Purple Door, CANNASSENCE, Live It Cannabis, Strain, Indiva Advisors, CANNACURE, NFT Society Club, a Millennia Solutions, a Healing Zone, a Cannabasics, a Biocan, a Cultivana, a Herbolif y a Jolif y a Herbo, Así que gracias por participar. Le adelantamos que la segunda edición del Women Cannabis Congress será el 18 y 19 de marzo del 2023. Queda concluido la primera edición del Women Cannabis Congress y gracias por acompañarnos en esta histórica y legendaria evento. Así que los esperamos en la próxima. Chao, que se mantengan seguros y salvos.